west of Tripoli. The pictures were sent to Al Jazeera by a rebel group in the area. A survivor of the killing says the men were rounded up, their legs tied before being shot in the head or back from close range. The pictures emerged as rebel fighters perhaps face their greatest challenge yet, as they take stock of what seems a slowing of momentum in their campaign. Libyan state TV says these pictures show a rebel base recaptured by the army in the western city of Zawiya. There are reports that tank shelling of the city on Monday has been the fiercest so far. That's despite earlier claims the military had taken full control.
Today at 10:30, the pro-Gaddafi forces attacked the town center. They used around 20 tanks and several cannons. They fired randomly and in all directions, and today's attacks were the most intense so far.
Rebels are regrouping in towns in the east of the country. The military and pro-Gaddafi forces have, at least for the time being, halted their advance to the Libyan leader's hometown and stronghold of Sirte. A report on Libyan state TV showed pictures, it said, were of rebel fighters killed in battle. The man on the microphone describes the men as rats serving a foreign agenda. These pictures have emerged purportedly showing a battle on Sunday in the town of Misrata, about 100 kilometers east of Tripoli. The amateur cameraman describes what he says is the blood of mercenaries. He says the post office was bombed by fighter jets. Gaddafi has again blamed the foreign media for distorting facts.
We don't wonder who is behind the foreign media and what their interests are. We think of them as channels conspiring and twisting the facts intentionally. I do not know the aim of these channels and who benefits from this.
As his propaganda campaign continues, he still seems almost oblivious to the increasing amount of civilians injured and killed. These images of wounded children were reportedly filmed in a hospital in Misrata. It's impossible to know exactly how many civilians have been killed and wounded so far, but a break in the military standoff will bring yet more intense fighting, and whatever that figure actually is sure to steeply rise. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera.
Algeria's president is coming under more pressure, this time from some 10,000 police officers. They marched to the parliament demanding better pay and directing their anger at President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. A tenth of the entire auxiliary police force took part. The force works in rural areas. Egypt's caretaker prime minister says restoring security in the shortest possible time is a priority for his government. Issam Sharaf spoke to journalists hours after a new-look cabinet was sworn in. Meanwhile, Egypt's prosecutor has ordered the detention of 47 police officers for burning documents at several state security headquarters. Egyptians have been trying to gain access to information gathered by ousted President Hosni Mubarak's regime. Tunisia's interim prime minister has unveiled his new cabinet and disbanded the country's feared and hated secret police. It's the third caretaker government since the overthrow of Zain al-Abidine bin Ali in January. Nazneen Mushiri has more from Tunis.
It was billed as a new beginning, but the interim Prime Minister Beji Caid Sebsi admitted the key positions in government will remain the same. The difference now, a promise that not one member of the cabinet will stand in the next election, and security will be a priority.
We wanted it to be a caretaker government, but more importantly, a government which saves the country from this predicament.
One of the first moves of this new government, the dismantling of the so-called political police, filmed here by Al Jazeera. A force which harassed and spied on Tunisians for so many years. The Ministry of Interior announcement came on its Facebook page. It just shows you how times have changed in Tunisia. This once hated institution is now using the same social sites which helped in the uprising to get its own message across. It's not clear how members of this once powerful security force will now react. The Prime Minister says this is a dangerous period for the country. His challenge now to take Tunisia to the next election and deliver the democracy people here fought and died for. Nazneen Mushiri, Al Jazeera, Tunis.
Shia Muslims have been pushing for more rights in Bahrain in protests directed at the Sunni royal family. And in their latest demonstration, around 200 Shia protesters have been rallying outside the U.S. Embassy, calling for Washington to stop backing the monarchy. Protesters have been camping at Manama's Pearl Roundabout since last month, but their stand has won only minor concessions. Zainab Al-Khawaja is a protest organizer in Manama. She says protesters want the U.S. to stop supporting the Bahraini government.
We want America not to get involved. We can overthrow this regime. We can. The people of Bahrain is strong, just like the people of Egypt. All we want is for America not to support the dictatorship in Bahrain, because people here, they're going to have to sacrifice so much more if the Americans decide to support the regime.
Sultan Qaboos of Oman has ordered a major cabinet reshuffle after weeks of anti-government protests in the strategic Gulf state. State TV is reporting that Sultan named several new ministers in key posts, including the person who oversees the economy. The move appears to be the latest in a string of concessions aimed at appeasing protesters who are demanding jobs and political reforms. South Sudan's been hit by a spate of killings with more than 50 dead in 2 days. Southern soldiers are fighting two separate rebel groups in Jonglei and Upper Nile State. All sides have suffered casualties, and it's unclear how many civilians have died in the crossfire. Such violence continues to plague the south, which officially becomes a new country in July. Only 4 days ago, 33 people were killed in the disputed Abyei region. Pro-government forces in Somalia have taken control of a strategic town in the west of the country. An official says rebel Al-Shabaab fighters abandoned the town of Luke on Monday morning without putting up a fight. It's being presented as a victory for the new transitional government, which has now been in place for 100 days. The United States has promised more than $12 million in aid for refugees fleeing growing violence in Côte d'Ivoire. Opposition fighters have reportedly seized the town of Touleplo, previously held by troops backing Laurent Gbagbo. Fighting between supporters of Gbagbo and those of his rival Alassane Ouattara is now the worst since the 2002 civil war. Mohamed Ado has more from the main city, Abidjan.
Ruling the streets of Abidjan, young men take matters into their own hands. Hundreds of them pouring into the streets, setting up roadblocks and searching drivers. They say they are here to help the police and army ensure that Laurent Gbagbo remains the president of their country. Their loyalty to the man is unshakable.
We shall die to protect Gbagbo, and we are doing this to defend the constitution of Côte d'Ivoire. Ouattara is going against the very constitution he voted for.
They take nothing to chance. Nothing misses their attention, and they don't mind who they upset.
I don't appreciate their attitude. I urge them to be polite as they go about what they're doing.
These young men say that their work on the streets has largely been successful and that they managed to nab a number of firearms destined for the rebels in the north. They are also understand instructions to ensure that the movement of UN personnel here in the capital is curtailed.
The UN forces have shown they are not impartial. They are biased. They are responsible for what is happening in Côte d'Ivoire.